You should have hit that one. This is live. Hey everyone.
Wait until people come on.
I gotta wait till a few people get on. Tag people? Hell no. Oops. Sorry. Anybody there yet?
There we go.
Okay.
People coming on.
Hey everyone.
Well,
Oh yeah.
we got one person.
Yeah, we gotta wait till we get a couple more
Take
people.
two.
Yeah. And I'm not the one that's doing this, so don't look at me. So,
Welcome to the Hot Mess Express. I'm
Right.
Candace Hudson, and this is...
James Cronenberger, the what's that? The Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I'm the beauty.
And I'm almost a beast.
Hey, Shannon.
Let's see.
Did you bring your questions, Shannon?
Please don't ask any hard ones. We may have the answer. If we don't, we're going to try to find the answers for you. Let's see.
There's people logging in now.
Yeah.
She said yes, she's got questions.
Uh-oh. Well, make sure you mark them down. Candace is going to take the notes because you can't read my handwriting. Oh.
Well, she asked them if you can answer. Well, I'll only be writing down the ones that we don't know, right?
Right. I'm sure there's going to be some that we don't know. With Ohio, we'll probably know more. Other states, we probably won't. But we can try to find out. What?
All right, so let's just go ahead and begin. Tonight we're just doing a question and answer for you guys, since we couldn't go live tomorrow night. So we're just, hey Mildred, hey Bianca.
Hey, Bianca Mildred.
Hey Melissa.
Bianca's our designer now.
Yeah, she did a good job on the
Yeah.
logo. So we'll get started, and the first question that I think we'll go ahead and address is, what exactly does Fair Treatment Reform and Reentry do? What is your main purpose?
Our main purpose has and will always be parole reform. We gotta make sure these guys get a fair chance and a transparent parole process. Instead of nature of offense, which don't change but people do, then as you heard recently, the misconduct of the parole board members, such as secretness amongst members, people voting by absentee ballots that don't even show up for the parole board hearings, eating during hearings, coming in late,
Talking amongst themselves.
and harassing people, racial comments on both sides. It's not just against one certain race, it's against inmates in general. We have asked for several resignations, starting with Cynthia Mauser, Mr. Hulk, Miss Venters, and as well as the new chair, and I can't pronounce her name. But along with the parole reform, within the last couple of years, we got a little bit into the reentry process to help these folks upon their release and point them in the right direction. And there's a lot more that we want to do. We want to get into transitional housing as a long-term goal. Our short-term goal is to help them today with transportation, finding housing, employment. So we're multifold. We also help with medical issues and transfers sometimes when need be.
You're shaking the table.
Oh.
And we also take donations for hygiene products or clothing. We use the donations that we get for bus passes, things like that.
Right.
So then let me go to this one question. So Beth Ann asked, with Shirley Smith coming forward, do you think that will impact the parole board at all?
Yes and no. I think it's bringing awareness. I don't believe the ODRC really cares. I don't believe our legislation really cares. But I think this is the time to get something done and that's why we're working on a proposal to get introduced. We're asking for these resignations. Shirley Smith has gone to every newspaper. We've been interviewed by the news media and newspapers as well. So we're going to keep the fire burning on this. We don't want this to burn out. This is a time to make changes and to fight for our cause. If we could bring people together and organizations together in all races and genders.
Well, this is also the time to make the legislature aware and
Right.
Write the letters and things like that.
Right. And while we're talking about this, let's talk a little bit about the letters. And Mildred, you could also comment on this as well, since you're very educated in this area. But we're asking for letters to go to the governor, Governor Mike DeWine, asking for the resignation of Cynthia Mauser. Then another letter will go to Miss Smith, and I can't pronounce her first. I forget what her first and middle name is, but Miss Smith, who starts this coming Monday, who will be the new director. Send letters there and ask her to replace Cynthia Mauser, Mr. Hulk, Ms. Venters, and the new chairperson of the Pro Board. This is very vital, and you could put down some of the corruption that you read about, such as unfair parole practices, parole officers missing hearings, coming in late, eating, voting by absentee ballot, basically. So getting paid $100,000 for not showing up. So there's so much you can add in there. And maybe Mildred can respond to that somewhat. Mildred helped me with my letter. She's a very good person that's organized. I wish she lived in Ohio, though.
Yes.
But
That would help us.
But she does a great job from where she's at. And she's really one of our advisors and been with us since day one. Okay, what's this third one?
Okay. So then I'll just go down the list. How hard is it? Jesse wants to know, how hard is it as a convicted felon to get a job or a place to live?
I think we both could answer this one. A lot of landlords will not rent to felons, especially those that's operated through realtors. Where I live in the city of Columbus, it's easier to find housing and employment. And I could just name a few places that hire felons. Bob Evans does restaurant. They hire almost any type of felon. IHOP, McDonald's, some McDonald's will, some Burger Kings will. Wendy's is kind of iffy. I forget the name of the place where you guys order from the food box that's over in Groveport. They hire felons. I forget that area. What the name of that place where you order the food.
The Ohio Supply?
Something like that.
Something like that.
They hire felons. John Rush of Clean Term hires them. He also has a coffee shop and a cleaning service that hires human trafficking women who is involved in human trafficking and being sold. And a lot of the temporary services do. So when people say they can't find a job, they probably can somewhat, but you start at the bottom and you work yourself up. And it will be more difficult than a person that has no record.
Melissa said, what is the process? Can you talk about what the process is to get the bill passed? Like how many sponsors are needed or how many legislatures?
Okay.
Wait a minute, I can't read. Many legislatures it takes to pass the bill.
Okay, you have 30 state senators and I think around 75 or 80 state reps. The process to get a bill introduced is you would have to find a Republican one since we're run by the Republican Party. So you want to find a Republican senator or a House member or both, along with the Democratic one. Democrats, we pretty much have one on this. And once they agree to introduce it, it goes to the bill room where they number each paragraph, which will be part of the bill, and give the bill a number. And then from there, it goes back and they have to rewrite it and put it in the area that they want to. Then it goes to the Judiciary Committee and they approve it. then it goes to the president of the Senate, and then it breaks up into subcommittees where they decide what they want in there, what they don't want. There's some things we'll negotiate on, but the big stuff we will not negotiate on, or we won't be part of it. Then it will go to a vote in one side, either the House or the Senate. And that, say if it goes to the House first, then it will go to the Senate for a vote afterwards. So it's really a long process. So if we start February 21st, our goal is for this to be introduced and passed before the Christmas break. So that's probably how long it would take.
Hope you wrote that all down.
And Mildred could elaborate on that too.
So this is another question that Nancy wants to know. How can we get our own laws changed? How can we put in our own proposal?
That's kind of tough. You have to have support from the community somewhat. The inmates' families and anybody that's around. It's taken us a year to promote this somewhat with the rough draft and the final draft, which I should have this week. Everybody that wants a copy will get it after Legislative Day, except board members. We don't want it in the prison system yet until Legislative Day. But it's a long process because you have to gain support. You have to network with people. If you have a nonprofit that sponsors it, is a great chance to pull some waves on it.
So if somebody wants to do their own proposal on something that's drug related or something like that, that's not has to do with parole, what would be their first step to get the proposal written out?
First step would be the research. The research before you do anything, you have to research everything regarding what you want in the bill. And it took us up to a year to do ours completely. It's easier to form a committee. One person works on one area, then you just split it up. But you have to have a writer, somebody that knows how to put it in a somewhat legal term, knowing that the Senate or the House will still rewrite it. But it's really a long process. If you'd like to discuss this with us, we're willing to talk to you about it.
Mildred said, I will be posting all names of legislatures Shirley Smith recommended to write to. I will forward to you, James, and to the parole committee.
Okay, good. We have already 9 meetings set up for the 21st, and we're going to do that's really our kickoff date. Then Beverly's going to work on a petition that we're going to get that done. That's approved by the state Secretary of State. Then we're going to do statewide, try and get 25,000 signatures as well.
So Shannon Drew wants to know, one of my questions is how likely is someone to get parole first, but they have a detainer from another state on an old charge?
Very likely. That happens all the time. And then, of course, you wait till that state picks you up, and they have so much time that they have to pick you up. And I thought it was 2 weeks, but I'm not sure. And if it's something minor, they probably won't pick you up because of the costs involved. But yes, a lot of people do get divorced. I mean, not divorced. That's just because I've been divorced so many times.
That's because you had 3 fiancés when you were in prison.
Yeah, but and I did love them all. But yeah, it's they can parole you, and sometimes they have a better chance of parole than anybody does because.
Do you know for sure, Shannon, that he's going to get picked up from the other state?
Does he have a warrant?
He's currently in prison right now.
Yeah, Ohio, right?
No.
No. What state is he in?
I believe Kentucky.
Ooh.
Then he'd have to report to that state himself.
No. They will pick him up. They're not going to release him if there's a warrant for him.
And I know in Ohio, they'll be telling you that you're leaving. You think you're leaving on the 23rd, and they can come in on the 23rd and take you right as you're walking out the door.
Right, but they have the other state usually has, I think it's up to 2 weeks to pick you up. They might have extended it. So, and then sometimes you do slip out
How
of that
could she
threat.
find that out for sure? Who would she need to call or contact or?
Well, personally, I wouldn't contact anybody just in case if they're
not
not
to put
going to.
antennas up.
Right. But if you want to check to see if he has a warrant, all you have to do is look at the county where he committed the offense and just Google his name and you can find that out. Or give us the name and maybe we could find out.
I don't know why the full comments aren't showing. They say they will pick him up in Tennessee, but give him 2 weeks. But they say if they don't come, he
walks.
he will let them out. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 weeks because that's pretty much a national census on that.
Right. So the next question is, can I claim my inmate on my taxes? From Mandy.
Absolutely not. Good try. It would be nice though. I mean, I want to collect my cat.
Now, this is a huge question that is in my prison wife support group. This is a huge debate, question, topic, whatever you want to call it. And from my understanding, I'm not an accountant or a tax person or anything like that. I'm not, in Ohio, you can't. I'm not claiming my husband. However, some of the ladies have said that they've done it for years, and they have done it not in Ohio, but other states have done it, and they
I'm not so sure that's legal though, because that's a federal
they're
law.
going to tax places and doing it supposedly. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would try that.
I know under George Bush, a law was passed that, because they used to be able to collect off of their spouse, but that you could not claim them on any federal.
The only thing that I have been told is that you can claim that you're married, but you
Right.
can't claim them.
Right, and I don't
And
know
I
if you
think
get
that's
money.
where people
Yeah.
are getting confused.
Right, and I'm not sure if you get money if you're married or not.
Yeah.
I should have
Filed.
my three fiancés. Then.
Whatever. There's laws against that, James.
I know, but I did love them all.
Okay, so Dee Dee wants to know, does solitary confinement really reduce violence?
No, it causes mental health. After the Lucasville riots, I believe it was April of 1993.
Yes.
They put people in segregation, and then they have what they call the Lucasville Five that they said did the murders, which they have the wrong 5 in the first place. But they kept them in segregation for over 10 years. And when they got out, they could not function. They were afraid of everybody. They stayed to themselves. A couple committed suicide. And it's even worse in the juvenile detention centers. They put them in segregation too for months because they're unruly kids instead of working on the issues. And we've been fighting solitary confinement for a long time because that's not a deterrent to commit violence.
Well, I can tell you, my husband is in solitary confinement right now, and just the change in him that I've seen, he's basically been in confinement since December 28th. However, he is completely in restrictive housing right now. And when I was in there, I asked the CO, because they're in a completely separate building. I had to be driven to the building where they're at, and I asked the CO, is this where they house them? And she said, yeah, they're housed, back past the gate. And I said, are these doors to, where the prisoners are? And she said, yes. It was so frighteningly quiet, like dead silent in there. And because they only let them out for an hour
a day.
And 15 minutes of that, they get put in a cage, what they call a cage.
Right. And they used to be only allowed 1 shower a week. I think they have a 2 now.
I'm not sure about that. But my husband, when he would lift his hand, he was shaking. and they had him chained to a chair, which the chains were actually, one handcuff was chained to the table, then wrapped around his waist a few times. Then he was chained to the arm of the chair, and then his legs were also shackled.
Right. And if you read this happened, several months ago, about that Lucasville guy that broke away from the table and stabbed 3 or 4 inmates up there.
He broke away,
Yeah.
or he was already, he
broke
wasn't.
out of the chains.
Oh, okay. I thought that they'd never
At least
shackled
that's what
him.
I heard. You might want to check the story, but the issue I have is they're not, when they're out there for their recreation, they're not supposed to be handcuffed to the table or anything. Up at the Supermax, when Kairos goes in there now, everybody's handcuffed and shackled to a table. That's not Kairos neither. They're really abusing these people in those facilities. And most of the people they say are the violent ones at Supermax really aren't.
Yeah.
But the staff has caused a lot of the problems.
So Bianca said that is another problem with such long sentences, especially when the inmate goes in as a child under 21. If not correctly influenced and encouraged, mental health can become a huge issue. And that is absolutely true. My husband has been incarcerated since he was 17.
And I was since I was 18.
Yeah, and so he's been in there for 26 years, and I'm shocked that he's not more mentally messed up than he is.
Right. And I'm a firm believer that children should not be charged as adults because their minds are not completely how do you put it, they're formed, but they're not able to think as an adult level yet. I mean, we have 14-year-olds that's charged as adults in Ohio that's got life sentences.
I was doing some research, which next week we are doing our segment on juveniles that are convicted as adults, and Jeff Johnson will be our guest then. But I think it was 10 that the age of 10, Ohio, that's the youngest one Ohio ever had in.
Yeah, and I think they changed it now to 12 or 13. I gotta check on that.
I'm not sure.
But you're right, it was 10.
I was researching it. That's just crazy because my oldest grandson is 9.
Well, look at what they did in 1984 with that 14-year-old boy. They executed him through the electric chair. That was the last execution of a child. And it was one of the southern states. I can't remember which one. We have another guy that's in prison still. He was 10 years old. He was pushing his baby sister's mom told him to stop. So the carriage went all the way down the hill and the baby died. They gave that 10-year-old life without parole. And that was in Mississippi.
Mildred said Oscar was placed in solitary confinement once. It was very, very painful to see him that way, but that was many years ago. I've never been in solitary confinement. That was my first time. But actually the COs were nice to me, and which made it a whole lot easier. And I was the only one visiting that day. Nobody else showed up, which was sad. So we were the only 2 in there, but they placed us all the way at the end, so we weren't sitting like right by the CO and things like that. But she kind of prepared me for it. But I'm telling you, the eerie silence in there was what got to me.
Right.
Because when you do the video visits or they send the videograms, it's loud. Even phone calls, it's loud in there. But you just...
Well, we can't forget
No.
also those on death row. I've been on death row a couple of times since I've been out. And that's like segregation year after year until the execution takes place. They're only allowed out of the cell 1 hour a day with nobody else, no physical contact. And Ohio has 28. California's got like 500 and some on death row.
Bianca said research shows the brain doesn't stop developing until mid-20s or even early 30s.
Or 50s.
Or men until they're 60.
Yes. She's including me. Good.
Shannon said, I feel for you all that have dealt with that and are Candace, because it would break me down to see Trav like that. I was okay until, because he was seated when they brought me in there, but I didn't realize he was shackled until he showed me, and then he made a joke about it, so I was okay. Mildred said Shirley Smith recommends to get people to sign petitions and send copies to the offices of legislators. Now,
Right, but we're going to do that with our proposal. If we do it now, it's going to kind of confuse them. So we're going to do it along with our petition, with our proposal.
So that was another question we received from, where is it? Another question that we had received, from a different Shannon, asking, do the petitions that are online, like change.org, do those work?
The state will not accept them. And the thing is, this is every state. You have to find out from the Secretary of State's office what is required. You cannot just type up a petition. It's not going to be accepted. It has to go by requirements from the Secretary of State. Certain things has to go on it. And it's very extensive. We're going to be working one for our proposal, after Legislative Day. And it's a lot of work to get something that's legal.
So they would need to call the Secretary of State in there.
They could look on the website, but it's kind of confusing. And there's so much details. You have to put down certain laws, different numbers on it. I can't even figure it out.
So nobody could just write down,
No.
write the story of their man or why
No.
they want their son to be.
They could, but it's not going to be legal and it won't carry any weight.
Okay, so you have to.
It may be for something like a company or something like that. But when you talk about the state or federal government, the federal government goes through their policies. The state goes through a Secretary of State. I think it goes through the National Secretary, the one, for anything national.
Melissa wants to know how many signatures needed.
For us to get parole reform on the ballot,
Isn't it thousands?
it's over 25,000, which is not hard to get. Issue 1 did not have a penny. Then they started doing this petition drive. They got over 25,000, but they raised $2 million during it, which helped them with the TV commercials.
So we're going to be standing with our clipboards.
Right. What we're going
Everywhere.
to do is we're going to break up Ohio in different segments, and some of us that live in Ohio will meet on Saturdays and do certain areas and just continue. It's going to take us, I don't think we would have it done for this November, probably the following. But I'm hoping that our proposal will get introduced and passed before then.
Mildred said she can't continue this momentum if she doesn't get help. I agree.
Yep, I definitely agree.
The next question from Dee Dee is, do you think prison reform can help influence change in other areas of the criminal justice system?
It would be a start, but when you talk about criminal justice system, you're talking from the courts all the way up, because they're all corrupt. Prison reform would cover every area, such as medical, food, housing, parole, for the states that have parole, because that would be included in it. But you're talking about something that's very extensive. Right now we need to worry about the parole, because our folks are dying in there and they're losing their family members because of how long they've been in.
Bianca wants to know, do the signatures have to be in Ohio?
Yes, for Ohio. But that, Bianca,
For only Ohio issues.
we'd love to have you move to Columbus. But,
and Mildred. All right, so April wants to know, where would one receive help, or where would they look to research inappropriate sentencing?
The Sentencing Commission, which in Ohio I think is in London. But I would check in your state where it's at. You would file a complaint with them, and not that it's going to really hold any grounds, but you probably...
So give an example of inappropriate sentencing. Charged with the wrong thing?
conviction, like a lot of us were.
Because I think that's pretty much
Or
everybody.
being promised something, and then at sentencing, they do the opposite without notifying you.
Okay.
Misrepresentation by an attorney can be considered in that category.
So you said go to sentencing
Commission.
commission. Okay.
And really, you should consult an attorney at the same time.
Right. Okay, so there's Dee Dee also wants to know there's programs implemented and areas stressed for prison reform, but how do we make sure that it's being addressed and implemented accurately and effectively? Such as keeping family ties is stressed in prison reform, but why do prices continue to go up for phone usage, etc.? Because it's all a moneymaker.
Yeah, the state gets a kickback from all the events. When I was locked up, the phone calls were anywhere from $9 to $12. Now I'm not sure what it is. Somebody said it was under $1 or something like that.
In Ohio, it's 82 cents.
Or 82 cents a call.
Yeah.
And the state still gets a kickback from that, just like when you order food and clothing boxes. The state used to get federal funding for each program the inmate took that the state sponsored. But remember, when the state sponsors a program and teaches it, they're only doing it as a job. But when an inmate teaches a program, we always got more out of it because they actually cared.
So here is another question that is kind of controversial, and it's a huge thing on the internet right now. And I have very mixed feelings about this, just because I have dealt with family that have been released and things of that nature. But is PICS a real thing? Post-incarceration syndrome. There's so much talk about it. Did you have a hard time adjusting? What would be some signs? This is from Lisa.
You're talking about of the inmate or the family members?
Post-incarceration syndrome, meaning men that are released. Is it hard for them?
Extremely.
Mental health wise.
Yeah, if you've been down any length of time, everything changes. When I got out, my dad let me use his cell phone, and he had a flip phone at the time, so I was moving from my ear to my mouth, not knowing that you didn't have to do that. I didn't know how to dial one. We didn't have the internet. We didn't even have cell phones, matter of fact. Crossing a street was terrifying. You didn't see cars. We had white wall tires before I got locked up. Coming out, they're all black tires.
Your brights were probably on the, in the floorboard, weren't they?
Yeah, all the tails that men had in the back of their hair was gone. People didn't have the long hair like they did. It was just so much different.
I think some of the things that I'm reading and seeing are like they can't deal with their sensory nerves as far as like stepping on carpet or riding in a car.
That's tough. Or feelings, having any feelings towards anybody. You're not used to the physical contact. I'm still not used to it, and I've been out 9 years. You don't like to be touched because that was a sign of weakness when you're locked up. It is mentally, and I suggest that each person that comes out that's done any length of time does get a psych evaluation just to see if they need any help.
So because it's a prison setting as opposed to people that would have to go to another country to adapt, do you think it's more mental because they were in prison? I mean, you had to adapt.
Environment.
Yeah, you had to adapt going into prison. Right. If you move to another country, even if you go on vacation, you have to adapt.
Yeah, but in prison, we called our cells our house. We called it home because for so many years it is home. We called our friends our family. When you get out, you have to readjust. Go back to your original family, and it's hard to explain. But
Shannon said her her husband, wait a minute, let me go back. Her husband told her that he's scared. He said he worries about cars, people, etc. He wants to take it slow. He's only been in 4 years. The longer the time, the harder it is. I knew a guy who had to sleep on the floor. He couldn't be around more than a few people at a time.
And that's very true. You know, I only can speak from people that's been in a long time, but people that's been in only a few years probably have some of the same problems. But you also want to be left alone and by yourself. When you're in a dorm with 280 men or in a cell block that's got 300 men, you just want to be by yourself.
Yeah. So that goes with this question from Dominique. Can someone being released apply for government assistance such as food card or welfare checks?
Yes, in the state of Ohio, they're supposed to sign you up for Medicaid and food stamps. Our group is we can sign you up for either. Every state is different on that. In Ohio, you can apply for food stamps and you will get it when you first get released, but they give you so much time to find employment. Medicaid, you get when you get, they're supposed to sign you up for that before you get released. And then if you've been out for a while, you still can get it if you make under $16,000 a year.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, this was another topic of if they can apply for SSI for PTSD for being incarcerated for so long. Is that true?
The states, the government's not giving it like they used to. Every addict that was in used to be able to get Social Security. I know several people that applied for it. The ones that are veterans can get it easily through the Veteran Service, but other people it's very difficult. You have to have some other psychological issue along with it.
With PTSD?
Yeah.
Bobby said that her husband worries about it and he's been down 26 years, so everything is different now. See, Dwayne doesn't stress about it, and he is more excited. Doesn't get, I don't know.
Wait till he gets out.
It's not something that he's really...
I wasn't worrying about it until the day I was getting out and my sister was like 4 hours late.
Right.
So I was panicking.
I think it would be harder if you don't have someone there to help you.
Yeah. Well, look what's happening. They're releasing people homeless, and that's not just Ohio. And you push somebody homeless, you push them right back into what they know to survive.
And, you know, like, because Dwayne always says, you represent my freedom. You know, you are my connection to the outside world.
Which is true.
Especially because I send him videograms of me driving, and I'll have the camera, so it's like he is sitting beside me in the car and things like that. Wow. And he says that it helps him.
Probably
I took
does,
the
though.
boy, my grandson's roller skating, and I send videograms. I do all of that to help him, and so he can see. So we've done that for a long time. I've taken him on dates.
I mean, that would have been awesome if they had all that stuff when I was locked up.
Yeah, so I think it's good because, like you said, like I represent his freedom and I'm his key to the outside world. And I can't remember now. I was trying to think of what it was. One of the things that was so funny.
Yeah. And people, remember, you're their key as well to the outside. Everything's changed. So if you could let them know how things are going on the outside, what's different, and encourage them to watch the news too. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, I tell Dwayne that too because he needs to, when they pass the First Step Act, I think a lot of the guys were like, oh, who cares? It's federal.
That helps us in the long run.
And I'm like, but it's still reform. You have to stay up on those. The videograms do help. Definitely. Shannon said that she does that, the weather, etc. That her husband loves seeing animals outside his window or on the yard. I call them his friends. But I do, like, everything that I do on a daily basis. Well, not really on a daily basis, but things I include him in so that he can see. But he loves it when I have the when I am driving down the road and I turn the camera so he can see the road.
Right.
He loves that because I'll do one right after the other, and they have like a slideshow on their J players. So he said he feels like he's riding in the car with me. So he's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So next question from April is, are there any current reforms being reviewed or newly activated regarding the 3 strikes law? If so, what are they, or is there an active link to review them? Are the qualifications listed?
Well, I would, if you're in California, I'd call, or I'd look under the California State Senate and Google up different bills. But I know recently California, a group challenged the law, which went to the California Supreme Court, and the California Supreme Court ruled in favor of the state. If you remember, California was a state where a guy stole a pack of cigarettes and 2 candy bars and got like 55 years for it. You know, because
was that his first offense, or
that was the strike 3? He was out. You know,
so do I have an app on my phone for JPay video? I have the app on my phone. Yeah.
Oh, but you can't do the video on your phone, can you?
The videograms, not video visits.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about video visits. Okay.
Yeah, you can do the videograms through the app on your phone, but not video visits. Okay, so when starting to research the information available for a loved one's case, where would a beginner start? How do you know what info is credible, accurate, and current? Which we are going to be doing a segment on this also.
Right, and let's hold off on answering that question. We're not legally minded, but I know a lot of the information go through the clerk of courts and look up his case. And Candace knows more about the research, and she's found several things in her husband's case, and that's by going through the transcripts. But I would suggest that you have more than one eyes looking through it, so that maybe somebody else would see something that you don't see.
Right. But your first step is to just get organized. Like, I have my husband's case in a binder with, I don't know what you call those, clear sleeves. The papers are in clear sleeves. And anytime I see anything, what I did was I numbered each page, went to Office Max or whatever it is, and had it copied and sent to him, and numbered the pages. So whatever I found or whatever he found, then I could say, okay, well, page 8 says this, and he could just turn to page 8. And when I sent everything to the attorney, we did it that way also. So I could be like, okay, on page 8.
Yeah. And also, when you're looking for
just get organized.
A pro bono attorney, a lot of people don't know this, but the bigger law firms, usually they have a pro bono section, would take so many a year. So I checked that. The public defender has a Innocence Project, but they only have one attorney in Ohio that works on it. Then you have the Innocence Project in Cincinnati, and the problem with them is every year they have new attorneys, so they have to start over from the beginning again. But some people have gotten out, though, through it.
Terry said she did that also. I'm assuming this is Terry. She's under the fair treatment.
Yeah.
All 3,000 pages. See, Dwayne's wasn't that long. He actually had 2 cases plus his juvenile. So I have 3 binders. But he took a plea, so we didn't have that. But Bobby wants to know, how can I get all of his transcripts? You just call the clerk of courts and tell them, give his name and the case numbers.
Do you have to pay for the transcripts?
You do have to pay for the transcripts. However, I didn't live in the same county, and if they email them to you, there's no charge. If they mail them to you, I believe there's a charge. And if you go pick them up, I believe there's a charge. However, they didn't charge me because his case was so old, they couldn't get him off of the microfilm and to email them to me. And so they just didn't charge me. Mildred said, JPay video visits are so hard to do. I can't connect with Oscar. Even using different browsers and buying more bandwidth, I couldn't make it happen.
I've
That's
heard
too
that
bad.
from other people though too.
JPay is the worst. And I found this, the place I was telling you about, what are those lawsuits called? Class action lawsuits.
Oh yeah, class action.
And I'm about to fill out some paperwork on JPay and have my 1,000-member wife support group file with me against JPay because they are robbing us blind.
I'd hate
They're
to be
thieves.
the judge.
JPay they're thieves. You don't their videograms, sometimes they're not the full 30 seconds, and we pay for that. Our loved ones pay for that.
3 stamps, I think.
3 stamps for the videograms, yeah.
I sent one in and
Melissa wants to know, would it be beneficial to get the transcripts if others were involved in the crime? Well,
I
yeah.
don't know. That would be your area.
Because my husband had a co-defendant, but you only get his transcripts. You don't get the co-defendant or whoever else was involved. Mildred said, yes, they are stealing money. They're completely stealing money. And I just received a JPay from them on a discrepancy that we had in August. And they told me they're no longer going to credit any account if the inmate doesn't show, meaning if they get put on lockdown, if their screen is blank, if their cord isn't working, or anything